The remains of the city melted by the intense heat, the human remains that were exposed to radiation and did not decay, high levels of radioactivity detected in remains that were said to have existed before 4000 BC. Ancient myths featuring high-tech technologies like modern science fiction. If so, there should have been a civilization at an ancient level that could create nuclear technology. And in order for such a civilization to exist, there must be high techniques that must be accompanied. Then there must be other clues that there was an ancient, highly technological civilization. There is one map. The map depicts the shape of Antarctica before it was covered with glaciers in detail. And the shape of the southern tip of Argentina in the South American continent is drawn in great detail. The map is said to have been drawn in Turkey in 1513. Columbus discovered America in 1484. But his first destination was the Bahamas in the Caribbean, not the southern tip of South America. And no matter how quickly Europeans explored South America and made a map, there was no technology at the time to explore the southern tip of South America and create an elaborate map for the first time in 29 years. They didn't even have airplanes that could fly in the sky as they do now. Moreover, as we can see, this map is very similar to a modern map with aviation technology. Even if explorers at the time drew this map, there is another problem. It was the Europeans who discovered South America. But Turkey, Ottoman Turks, was their enemy at the time for them. It doesn't make sense to give a map with detailed geographic information to an enemy who might attack them. This speculation itself is a contradiction. And what's even more strange is the map shows Antarctica. How could you draw a map of Antarctica at that time? The discovery of Antarctica was made much later, in the 18th century. British James Cook first explored the Antarctic region in 1772, after an American whaling ship discovered an island off Antarctica in 1820. Admiral von Bellingshausen of Russia first set foot on this continent in 1821. So where did this map originally come from? Charles Hapgood, a professor at Keene University in the United States, who received a doctorate in history from Harvard University, obtained the mysterious map by chance. He asked the U.S. Air Force to decipher this mysterious map of the map of reis. The answer was very shocking. This map is said to have been made before the Queen Maudland region of Antarctica was covered with ice. It is said that the region of Queen Maudland was not frozen between 13,000 BC and 4000 BC. And also this map is an aerial map. If so, there must have been a civilization capable of surveying the coast of this region at least before 4000 BC. In other words, it was made with data that someone measured in the air. Afterwards, Professor Charles Hapgood speculated that, based on this map, there must have been an ancient civilization that was similar to or surpassed the level of modern civilization in ancient times. And based on this, he argued the so-called polar shift theory, that the Earth suffered a catastrophe in which the axis of rotation was changed due to the crustal shift in BC. This theory has sparked controversy in academia. This theory was supported by Einstein. Then he began to inform the general public about this map through the book, Map of the Ancient Sea King. Dr. Charles Hapgood said the map of the reis was originally sent to Constantinople from the Alexandrian Library, an ancient library that had been mysteriously destroyed, and it may have been used by the Venetians during the Fourth Crusade in 1204 to discover the New World. And there are other similar maps. He said these maps depict the Earth in a different ice age than it is today. The Orontius Finnaeus and Mercator are such maps. He said reis map are well known, but these two maps are not very well known. The map of Orontius Finnaeus also depicts the unfrozen Antarctica. These maps depict Antarctica thousands of years before Antarctica was discovered. And Dr. Charles Hapgood mentions ancient maps of China such as same in his book. Also, The map of Hanolgang-Miji created during the Joseon dynasty in Korea is a mystery. A map of Hanolgang-Miji, made in Joseon dynasty in the 13th century, depicts a lake in northern Africa that disappeared 10,000 years ago. If so, what civilization existed before 4000 BC could make aerial maps? Mainstream scholars say the first place of civilization was the Tigris and Euphrates River in the Fertile Crescent, and it is said that Sumerian civilization first emerged around 5000 BC. Then, in 4000 BC, the Egyptian civilization arose, and in 3000 BC the Indus and Yellow River Chinese civilizations arose. If so, it means that civilization originated at least 7,000 years ago. But at that time, did we have the skills to draw such a map? This map amplifies several problems. First of all, who were the people who drew these maps, and how did the aviation technology that had to be involved in making these maps exist at that time? As mainstream scholars say, humankind barely escaped from hunter-gatherer life around 5000 BC and began an agricultural culture, and cities were developing on a small scale, most of them living a barbaric tribal life. But how did the technology to launch airplanes in the sky at that time exist? However, according to the hypothesis that there may have been a nuclear war in Mohenjo-Daro, even a formidable nuclear attack would be impossible without aircraft technology. But even more surprising, there are clues that aviation technology may have existed in ancient times. Egypt. In Saqqara, 20 miles from Cairo, there is the Pyramid of King Djoser. More than 3000 BC, it is one of the oldest pyramids in Egypt. Saqqara is also famous as a burial place in Egypt. That is why it is called City of the Dead. In 1891, French archaeologists excavated tombs before 300 BC. They excavated the tomb of an ancient Egyptian official called Pidi Iman. A strange burial item was found there. It was a piece of wood in the shape of a bird, and a sheet of papyrus was found next to it. On the papyrus it was written, "I want to fly." The bird sculpture didn't get much attention at the time, but it was not until 1969 that Egyptian physician Dr. Khalil Messiha paid attention to its shape. However, this bird shape is similar to the design method of modern aerodynamics. As shown in Figure 1, the shape of the tree bird resembles that of an airplane rather than an actual bird. In 2006, aerodynamics expert Simon Sanderson tested the possibility of flight by making a model by expanding the shape of Saqqara's bird 5 times. After testing, Sanderson said the shape of the bird resembled the shape of the glider we use today. But researchers have discovered a difference between a bird and a glider. It's the absence of a horizontal tail stabilizer, which surprises researchers who have been paying close attention to birds. But surprisingly, there was a trace of a horizontal tail stabilizer wing attached to the tail of the bird. And in the early 20th century, robbers who were robbing the cemetery of the Tolima civilization in Colombia discovered strange artifacts. The cemetery is presumed to be at least 1,500 years old. However, one of the artifacts was shaped like a jet airplane. This artifact had vertical tail wings and horizontal stabilizer. This is a typical modern airplane retracting wing design. So, in 1997, German aerodynamic expert Hapgood Antarctica made a clone and tested it. They installed the engine and tested it. Of course, the test was a great success. This aircraft flew in the sky very naturally. If so, do we really think these are just coincidences? So, aren't there any records of the existence of flying vehicles in ancient times or any other clues that suggest something similar? Because the existence of flying machines must have been important to people at the time. If it is assumed that the ancients had the same feelings that we feel when we think of airplanes in modern times, perhaps there are records. This content is a series. Please watch in order as much as possible. To be continued.